You mentioned at the very beginning of this session the challenge of a homepage when you have multiple different stakeholders who have very different needs and desires. Let's say I'm selling to a major enterprise, and you've talked before about how maybe the C-level suite is thinking more about internal alignment, whereas the actual end user is thinking about usability. How do you address divergent concerns on a single homepage?
I take it as a given that you're typically talking to your end user most of the time. I've heard a few marketers that I respect say you always talk to your end user. That's not true. I recently worked with a Berlin-based supply chain digitization platform. And in our case, we are selling to C-suite. We are selling the product to people who will never actually use it. They will never touch the interface. They will never use a dashboard. That's interesting. That is rare though. The vast majority of the time we are talking to the end user. I would always address the end user primarily, and I would deal with C-suite and finance. So C-suite, you've got the end user as a person who's using it. C-suite are the people who are probably going to sign off on the budget. So I need to understand how it's aligned with their strategic objectives over a 3 to 5 to 6 year period. And then, IT and finance, what we call blockers. They're looking for reasons to say no. So I address the end user directly, typically, to answer your question,
Fair.
there's a rare occasion where I sell directly to C-suite, but most of the time we address the end user and the others are secondary. In terms of talking to different audiences, one of the key things to consider is you might have 5 different audiences. Do they have a different user journey? If those 5 different audiences all log into the platform and they go through similar, I like to walk people through typically 4 to 5 steps. And the first step is, depending on the product, it's usually how easy it is to get started. So how easy it is to migrate over. It could be a self-serve product, just get started, get loaded up. I sometimes fold in, if it's a really easy self-serve product, I sometimes don't even dedicate a section to that. But definitely with an enterprisey type product, I want a section talking about how easy it is to get onboarded. They're going to talk to an account manager. And then 2 to 3 sections, depending, of key feature buckets, feature bucket A, feature bucket B, feature bucket C, primary use cases there. And then what I like to do is wrap up with either 1 to 2 sections of outcomes, describing the future. So what I might do for an enterprise is break that into 2 sections, tactical and strategic. So tactical or managerial level would be now, because we've got features A, B, and C. Now, over the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to gain these tactical advantages. You can see what your sales team is doing. You can get more sales. You can run that particular department of a business more effectively. Strategic. Now, over the next 2 to 3 years, you can scale a business faster. You can enter more markets. You can launch new products. If it's a smaller traditional B2B, I'll typically just have one outcome based section there. But yeah, if it's enterprise, I break it up. So I map out that user journey of 4 to 5 points. And if we have 5 audiences and they all have a kind of similar journey, then I can have that same homepage tackling it. And then underneath at the bottom, I might break out, I have my call to action. And then underneath that, I might have a section saying, here are the benefits of different audiences. The problem is when we have a product where we're selling to 5 audiences that have a very different journey and a very different interaction. They might be using different products. In that case, what I typically do, I've got my hero section, my pain points, my solution. And then immediately under that, sometimes I have a box where it's like, which of these audiences are you? Are you audience A, B, or C, or D or E? And I funnel them off early in the page straight to a dedicated user journey for them. So that's the kind of a key question is, do you have an agnostic user journey, or do we need to funnel people as quickly as possible to a specific user journey for them?